Good morning, good morning. Sorry, a couple of minutes late. Just usual Saturday morning with a toddler. So this is the first coffee and chat of 2023. It's very exciting. Alex, you're already on. Good. We are going to be with Alex McIntyre and Susan Clare. And it's going to be very exciting. Good morning, everybody. So if anybody caught these last year, then it's just a chance for me to say hello to some ArtCan artists and find out about their practice, what's going on, what sort of exciting plans they've got. And I happen to know that the two who are joining me today have got some very exciting plans for the rest of the year. So you need to request to join, please, Susan and Alex, and then we can get on with the conversation. Awesome. Oh, here we go. Let's get this sorted. Nice. And accept Susan, hopefully. Go. Well, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Can you hear us?
I can hear you very well. It is very early for you as well, isn't it? So thank you so much for waking up so early. I hope you've got a huge mug of coffee ready for this. And here we go. Let's get Alex in as well. Nice. Come on, Alex. Oh, look at that. Seamless, obviously. Absolutely seamless. It's just meant to be. Good morning, Alex, and Happy New Year. I feel we're allowed to say that for the January coffee and chat because it is still obviously, January, and it is the new year. So I hope your year has started off beautifully and excitingly. We will move on to both of your exciting plans. It's very, very cool what you two have planned. But I wanted to start, and Susan, we should say that Susan is in a totally different country, a long way away. So it may be a bit of buffering is necessary with us joining because I can see a circle swirling. Hopefully she'll be with us soon. So Alex, we might start with you if that's okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Brilliant. So the plan of these chats, as always, is to find out a bit about your practice, what's going on, and then at the end of the chat, you get to throw some curveball questions at me, which, as always, I have no idea what they're going to be, so this is going to be interesting. So Alex, maybe you could start, please, with when did you join ArtCan and why?
I think I joined ArtCan last year. The last couple of years have kind of melded into each one another. So it might have been 2022, it might have been 2021 autumn of. And I joined, so that, had that weird thing that's happening with time at the moment. I joined to build connection with other artists. So I have my studio on a farm in Hertfordshire, working very much solo. And so I do, as part of my professional development, I actively engage with different sorts of artist networks for community, for stimulus and idea exchange, and because wonderful collaborations happen as well, as Susan and I are going to talk about it a bit. So so I'm just delighted to be part of such a thriving community. It's amazing.
It has grown as well. This last year, we've suddenly now up to sort of 530 artists, and we're covering 26 countries with those artists. So, it's the ripple effect of all of those people and that sort of conversation that they're having with today's society in a gorgeous, creative, arty way is just so important, I feel. And so that does lead very nicely on to sort of Susan, who is in another country. But I'm not sure she's with us at the moment. Susan, are you joining?
I am with you. I can see you and I can see me, but I don't know if you can see me. Sorry, can you hear me?
Well, you can't see you, but we can hear you, so that's brilliant. You carry on. There we go, because we can at least hear you and we can carry on with the conversation. Do not worry. And we're occasionally getting sort of nice screen grabs of you with gorgeous smiles. So yes, I wondered if you could then sort of share when you joined ArtCan and why as well.
Yes, I joined ArtCan in 2020, and the reason is because I had been following your activities and coming to some of your events from about 2016, maybe 18.
Yeah.
And living out of London, but wanting to be more involved in London and finding that all of you are such lovely people, just made me want to become a member and be a part of what you were doing. You know, the energy in ArtCan is amazing, the collaboration and the just forward movement. It's really encouraging.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. You are a true representation of the fact that it doesn't actually matter where you are in the world, you can be part of a community, especially, and I would always thank the pandemic for the fact that it sort of progressed and pushed us forward with, you know, technological advances so that we could do things like this, and we could do Zoom calls, we can make things happen in a virtual sort of space as well. So yeah, it's very cool. So we'll go back to you, Alex. Yes, go on. Give us
so
give us
Jamaica, because I spent part of my year in Jamaica and part in England. So that's how I was able to come to some of your events, even though I am also based here in Jamaica.
Oh, is it warm and sunny and glorious right now?
Well, if you could see me, you see I've got a cardigan, but that's because it's very early in the morning and I live up in the mountains. But you're going to think I'm a real wimp now because it is 21 degrees out, but I'm bundled up because that feels cold.
Yeah, heartbreaking. Can't you tell? Just seriously, I'm just like, I feel for you so much.
I'm sure.
Oh, it's very grey here today. I'm hoping the sun will come out later. Let's carry on with a bit about your practices, each of you. So Alex, do you want to sort of explain what your process is and your practice and inspirations are as an artist?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run and walk and cycle, and I have an embodied relationship with land and sky. Very definitely around where I live in Hertfordshire, but also travelling further afield. So last year I went up into the wilds of Scotland and onto Cornish moors as well, and made really physical, responsive drawings. And then I take those back into the studio and paint using a process-led approach. So I might start with a stimulus. I don't want them to be copies of places, so mimetic responses in any way. I want them to have a feeling of place and a feeling of light. I'm interested in layers of light and color in particular as well. And then I carve into the surface and I raise the surface out. So at the moment in the studio, I'm working towards the other art fair, which is scarily close, really scarily close. So you'll see I'm in my painting gear ready to go straight after this call. And I'm working
when is it? Give it a plug.
The 9th to the 12th of March, and I'll be at the Truman Brewery in Brick Lane. So if anyone does want to come and see me, then please do. Along with I think there'll be 126 other artists there doing fabulous things as well. So it's a really fun.
I think there are quite a few other ArtCan artists as well, so we should make sure that there's a little posse that meet up and raise a glass together.
Yeah, that would be so nice. That'd be so nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the studio I've got big wooden surfaces that I'm sanding into and layering colour up of. So I was in there last night till quite late, and so that's always a bit of a risky thing to do because light changes. So I'm not entirely sure what I will find when I go back in tomorrow. But hopefully some interesting things happening with kind of etched layers and translucent layers and lots of physicality. You can feel it with the hands wiggling about.
Do you like those sort of happy? Do you like the sort of happy accidents? And is that something that you sort of accept as part of your process, or do you try and sort of avoid having those surprises in the morning, as it were? Or do you thrive on them, or is it something that you go, oh, I'm just gonna have to deal with it?
I think of painting as a conversation, a bit like you and I having a conversation now. It's the same way. So I don't know what you're going to say next, Kate. I don't know what you're going to ask me next. I don't know how you're going to respond to what I say, you know. So, and it's the same way with painting. So absolutely. And I very definitely encourage, like, create things that trip me up or trick me or do something that then kind of gives me a curveball, that gives me a problem that I then have to solve. And so that keeps me free and moving and working quite in a fast way. You can see the piece behind me. These are just some little pieces. And again, they're kind of very physical. And this one just arrived because I had chucked a load of stuff down, left it to dry, went for a run in the dark, came back the next day and chucked another load of stuff, and then it sort of painted itself, because they do that.
Yeah. So it's actually the organicness of the process is integral to you actually finding that moment where you go, that's finished, and that's really, I love that. Oh,
yeah.
gorgeous.
And that's the exciting alchemy, isn't it? That's the chemistry of it. That's where it gets really like, oh, I didn't know it was going to do that, and that's where it's so
fulfilling.
Yeah, it's really thrilling. Yeah.
And I think sometimes artists often try and control too much because there needs to be a final sort of outcome. And I personally, it's only when I start painting that I realize what it was that I thought I was going to paint is actually what's going to come out. And it's always ever so slightly different. It's always got its own journey to get to that sort of final ending, regardless of how much I'm sort of trying to sort of, express what it is that I'm sort of feeling. But to let it have its own organic kind of like process at the same time is, I think, really important. And finding that freedom is then when you just end up feeling at one with it, as opposed to it being like a battle or a fight, and it should never be that. So it's really lovely to hear. Susan, should we move on to your sort of practices and processes and what your inspirations are too?
Sure. So I paint mostly in acrylics and watercolor. Watercolor came first and then grew into acrylics and mixed media, incorporating other found pieces and so on. Most of my inspiration has been the world around me here in Jamaica. And of course, when I moved back to England, I found that the countryside there has so much to offer as well. But even more than that, my first career was in scuba diving. So that has informed a lot of what I've been doing, because a major influence in those days was the preservation of the coral reefs and the environment as a whole. So everything I do is trying to say something towards that. And as you were talking about happy accidents, that's a big part of my watercolor practice for sure, is to try and let go and have fun with it. Part of when I'm in England, I go and here via Zoom, I do a lot of demos for art clubs. So when I'm doing a demo, you have a limited amount of time to rethink it all. So you have to get used to those happy accidents being in your favor, which is really challenging and exciting at the same time. So I really enjoy that. And when it comes to incorporating bits of found plastics or using things like the mesh from citrus bag nets and bringing those into the surface of the painting, I think that's it helps to bring in a reminder of what we're all up to in the everyday circumstance, but not necessarily an in-your-face kind of image that's going to be a negative image. I always want my paintings to be uplifting and make people feel better for looking at them. And when my have workshops as well in England and here, and that's an important part of that too, is to get people to have fun.
Yeah, I think there's a element of responsibility when you are an artist and you're sort of capturing your own sort of processes and messaging that you yourself want to sort of part through your work, impart through your work, that you can use whatever tools and everything else around you, but it can then have a subtlety or a conversation that's a starter as opposed to a dictatorship in a sort of way. And I think that actually enabling those sort of conversations that through a visual sort of language makes it a much easier, concept and conversation for people to start having, as opposed to sometimes, like you say, if it's too sort of in your face or sort of demanding, then it often has the negative sort of effects of people actually engaging with it as a topic and things like that. So I like the subtlety that you obviously sort of recognised in how you're doing your own sort of practice to enable those really quite vital and important conversations. Do you still scuba dive?
Yes, whenever I can, which isn't as often as I'd like, but yes, I went about 6 months ago.
Oh,
it still feels like going home.
I bet it does. It must be amazing and really inspiring. But
Yes.
Also quite, sort of every time you do it, you must feel a renewed energy to save it, even more.
Absolutely. Of course, it's not quite what it was when I used to go 20 years ago, but it's still any little bit that we can do makes an impact. You know,
Yeah.
any small positive changes will have a bigger impact than you expect on the reef being able to rejuvenate itself. So
Yeah.
that's really encouraging.
It's the ripple effect, isn't it? Again, it's the ripple
Yes.
effect. Yeah. Brilliant. Well, this brings us very beautifully on to the fact that you both have a really rather exciting and interesting collaborative project in the pipeline for 2023. So who's going to kick off with the headlines?
Well, maybe I should go first, since I sort of got the ball rolling. So this is something I've wanted to do for at least 4 years. And I always find myself in England doing art demos for clubs and talking about the inspiration that Jamaica brings me. And so it's been overdue for me to actually organize a trip to have people come and experience that lovely sense of renewal and connection with the environment while they're painting as well. And I've known Alex for about, I don't know, since about 2018, something like that. And we've gotten to know each other a little better over the years. And in fact, this summer I went along to one of the workshops that she ran in Shropshire, and with a specific sort of, apart from enjoying her workshop, I wanted to find out if we would connect and work together in terms of building.
You had an ulterior motive. You really
yes,
did,
I
didn't
did.
you?
I have to admit it. And you know, the connection was amazing, and she absolutely brings more than I could give myself, and the connection between us, I think, is great. And we sort of complement each other in our teaching processes and approaches to art. So it's absolutely great. So
Love it.
yes, I'm really glad to have got her to agree to come and do this in September. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah,
really
what
had
exactly is it?
you know? So we're running a creative retreat at the Wharf House from the 9th to the 16th of September this year. We've got a call out for participants at the moment, so we will run it with 6 people, and we have capacity to have 12 people with us. I'm going to get Susan to talk about the Wharf House because she's actually been there, but the photos of it just look absolutely sublime. And I think what has been really, really, really beautiful so far is that Susan and I have thought about who would really benefit from this week, what we want to give them, what we want that experience to be for an individual, and for an individual connecting with a community of people as well. So because we'll have 6 or 12 participants on site, that's about how are you facilitating that individual's creative process during the week, their relationship with the environment, their relationship with their materials and with their own creativity, and then how do you hold that person in relation with other people so that they build a deeper connection with other creatives. And that connection will be global. That's one of my things for this year, is that I am doing various different collaborations globally with cross art form, because I think one of the things that came out of the pandemic was a real lived awareness of how important people are, how important are the conversations we have when we are with each other,
Yeah.
and the different ways in which you can do that. So Susan, shall I let you talk a little bit about the Wharf House?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. Well, as you can, I'm sure everyone can pick up, Alex is also a coach, and this is one of the things that she's bringing to the table, which is, I think, just going to benefit everybody so much, because she draws that creativity out of you. And the ideal spot for me, I mean, I've had a few years to think about where, is the Wharf House, which is right on the water. It's a private villa and entirely enclosed property, run by somebody that I've known for over 30 years. And it's private, it's inspiring. It has the water right there. It has enormous trees, cotton trees and guango trees that are over 50, 60 feet high. Wow. It's been established there. It was a wharf house, as in the name. So it's been there since the 1800s. So there's cut stone walls. There's the central building is an old sort of great house made of stone walls and filled with fabulous antiques and stuff. yet it has mod cons, Wi-Fi and so on. There's ruins on the property, there's amazing flowers in the gardens. So there's a little bit for everybody. And of course, the staff that run the place are just like family, you know, and they produce a spread every day of freshly prepared food that's all local ingredients and really good for you. A lot of the members of that family are vegan, but they also produce, you know, fish and chicken and stuff if people want that. So they're very, very creative and very supportive of the kind of lifestyle that we want to offer for that week.
It's amazing. I just I just to be able to stop the world and get off with a creative sort of aspect to it. I know that there's lots of sort of yoga retreats, there's lots of artist residences, but within the environment ends up sometimes feeling quite prescribed. And I think what you're describing just offers the freedom to actually feel and be, as opposed to like, well, I have to do this, or I have to do, you know, certain sort of processes every day and things like this. And it's just that I think to offer that freedom in a space that has that just ingrained within it is going to be really quite an experience.
Yes, I think you've absolutely encapsulated it there, because that's a part of my process that I just take for granted, is that when you live in Jamaica, you're mostly living outdoors. You might be on a veranda or, you know, in the garden, take a walk in the garden every morning, but you get an enormous amount of energizing and inspiration just from being in the environment. And so one of the things we want to encourage is for people to sit with that and experience it and really connect with it. And that then has a different influence on what they produce for the day. Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic. So how do people find out about this? How do they sign up? How do they get in touch? What do they do? I prepped you for this. Come on, guys.
We're diving straight in there. So obviously we have a brochure that we can send out and email to everyone. We are also doing online calls. So we've got another one coming up on Friday next week at 6 o'clock. I think it is. So it's
1 o'clock
p.m. GMT and 1 p.m. EST. We have the brochure so if you direct message either me, so Alex McIntyre Artist on Instagram, or Susan Clare. Susan, what's your handle?
Susan.Clare.
There we go.
I will tag it in the comments afterwards once I post this to the feed. Do not worry.
Thank you. So just ping us a message and we will send you the brochure so that you can spend some time really looking at the place and budgets and accommodation. And then do join us for an online call so that you can ask any questions and get to know us a little bit. So one of the things that we are very much doing is thinking about, so as you were so beautifully picking up there, Kate, is very much thinking about the individual, how we can create a space that is nourishing, that is freeing for them, and where there is real rest, relaxation and creative regeneration individually and collectively. And one of the ways that we're doing that is obviously through the little taster. So if you come along to the Zoom call, you'll get a sense of how we might work during the week, in addition obviously to making and being, you know, just imagine yourself there being able to wake up in the morning and go and get in the sea. You know, that's what I think, you know, there's just this amazing,
just for that,
where you can literally just walk out and get straight in the sea. So so do get in touch with us. We would love to hear from you, even if you're thinking maybe not necessarily immediately now, but this is something that I want to work towards in the future as well, because I think Susan and I are just enjoying working together so well that that there are future possibilities as well. So do reach out to us. If
that's lovely, actually, because often people, I mean, it's nature, isn't it? It's like, well, let's see how that one goes, and then they'll sort of recognize it and then want to actually do it again. So it's a bit like the first ever ArtCan exhibition that I did all those years, 10 years ago, because it's our 10-year anniversary this year. Thinking, well, this is fine, it'll just be a one-off. And then before I'd even finished it, people would say, well, when's the next one? So I would be careful what you're setting yourselves up for here, because it might be in 10 years time you're now running amazing retreats to Jamaica every year. And let's hope so too, because it should be the start of something, just to sort of bring your two energies together as well, to sort of offer that to other creatives is really wonderful. Yes. So good luck. Let me know if there's anything I can help with. Go on, sorry, Susan.
It's also, I was going to say, you can access the brochure on my website. It's under my workshops. It's listed under my workshops. So that's another way if you want to find it online, you know, and reach out to us as well. And if you are keen on having a chat, but the time doesn't suit you, we're very willing to set up times for Zooms when people can accommodate it into their schedule.
Brilliant. Oh, you guys are just, it's going to be fantastic.
Just noticing this is really, I really wanted to just say thank you to everybody who's popped on here, because we've been seeing all of the lovely, Debs has just put a beautiful comment up there, and we've been seeing all the hearts and things as well. So it's just really encouraging, and it's made it a really joyful experience coming on live, as well as obviously with you, Kate. So.
Yes. Absolutely.
They're good people, all supportive.
Scroll, but I didn't catch who. So, it's all good.
Well, I think we have a fellow ArtCan artist whose home is Jamaica too, so she may well be reaching out to say hello to you when she's next back there, Susan. Yes. So who knows? It's the ripple effect again. So it is now time for the curveball questions for me. Have you both been putting your thinking caps on? Go on, Alex, you go first.
Well, actually, I wondered, because we attended this amazing Saturday workshop where you and the team just ran through all of the fantastic things that are happening this year, and it is busy. It's really busy, right? So what is your thing that you're most excited about this year? There's so much. What's the thing that's in your head at the moment, leaping up and down, that you want to shout about?
Oh, well, actually, and this is only because it's been a very recent conversation, and this was the fact that I had a Zoom call very early in the morning in New Zealand with Jen Wiggle for her, and very late in the evening for me here, and we are discussing co-curating a video artwork which will celebrate the amazing contemporary artists of ArtCan, but actually be an artwork in itself with all the different sort of facets that come together. And the call out will be coming out soon to the ArtCan artists. And I can see it. You know, when you've got something in your head and you can see it. And so the conversation just made us very excited, because it will cover everything that ArtCan is trying to do this year, and what it has done for the last sort of 10 years, but also what we're really looking forward to in the years to come, and that sort of collaborative conversation and messaging and immersive sort of nature that visual art is so good at doing and actually achieving. I just can't wait for it. I won't be able to be there because, you know, New Zealand, but it doesn't actually matter, because it's going to be video, it's going to be, the conversation is going to be able to be streamed, it's going to be connected, it's going to be hopefully going viral, it's going to be just, it's going to be really good. So that is what is in my head at the moment, because also it's my chance to be co-curator, and I love the curating of exhibitions, but I also have been giving that to a lot of other ArtCan artists actually who want to have that experience, who've brought ideas to me, and I facilitate them being the curator. So this is probably the one this year that I'm really excited about, because I get to co-curate with one of the amazing ArtCan artists as well. So yeah, that's in my head right now, and I'm excited.
Might dive straight into another curveball question then. That sounds absolutely awesome. And what I'm really paying attention to as you're talking about that is that this 10 years, you know, so 10 years ago, you had this idea to set up ArtCan and you know, and the evolution.
Well, I didn't have an idea to set up ArtCan. I had an idea to organise a group show. So I just had an idea to organise a group show. That was it. It was just me as an artist feeling like I was seeing all the same faces at my private views. And I thought, well, other artists must have the same problems, so maybe we'll share each other's same faces, and then we'll end up meeting new faces. Little did I know. But yes, it was never a plan. But sorry, go. What's your question?
So the question then is, from inception to now, what is that journey? And where are the highlights of that as well, or the little bumps in the road, or what? Tell us a bit more about that journey, because it feels really live in January. 10 years. It feels a really live point to talk about that.
Oh well, highlights through it. One of the highlights actually was, even though it wasn't meant to be an organisation, it was after about sort of 5 or 6 group exhibitions, I suddenly realised that I wasn't alone as a contemporary artist trying to do things a little bit differently in the sort of perceived traditional art world that we all function in and try and sort of fit in with. And it was at that point I thought, well, actually, I'm not very good at fitting in anyway, so maybe I'll just do it my own way. And there are other artists who need that platform. It was a need for other artists to be able to exhibit without relying on gallery representation, and feel confident and sort of positive about all of that. So that was a real highlight, when I sort of felt that I wasn't alone in trying to make that difference and do something differently. Alongside the rest of the sort of art world. So as soon as I sort of got that realization, and the people who were coming along for the journey, that actually made everything really easy, because it's amazing what you can do with good energy, and it's amazing what you can do if someone just says, yeah, okay, I'll do that with you, and you can make a lot happen. And it was the next sort of highlight after that, once I sort of pulled everybody together into a slightly more formal sort of community at that point, was actually organising it as a non-profit organisation, so that I could get trustees, I could get other experts within the field sort of working alongside me as well. So it wasn't just artist-led, it was sort of art expert-led as well. And so that sort of mixed together meant that it ended up with a really good base structure that meant anything is possible. So but that's also why we didn't set it up as a charity, because it felt like we were going to have to tick boxes along the way for the charity expectations. Whereas actually, as a non-profit organisation, we're totally volunteer run. Everything, the money that comes in goes directly back to the programming, which goes back to the artists. It just meant that we can function as a business, which I find quite satisfying too. So those sort of steps along the way that just, I felt like a big tick, and I think I did probably drink champagne at each of those steps along the way, and sort of celebration that we were building this. And I think this year now, it's been organic all the way through. Things have happened because they're meant to happen. Relationships have been built, collaborations have been made very sort of solid, and the reach that we now have and the opportunities that we have is fantastic. So I just can't wait for that to keep going, because it has been organic, and in that sense it feels very genuine and it feels very honest, and I'm very proud of that. Is that a good answer?
Yeah, amazing.
Yes.
And I'm wondering about some of the timescales as well. So after the 5 or 6 first shows, if we're thinking about 10 years, and I know that we're talking about ArtCan now being in 26 countries and 530 artists who are part of ArtCan, and that kind of acceleration. I think I met you possibly in 2018 at an event, and even since then I've seen it absolutely skyrocketing. So I'm just wondering about that. A bit what strikes me is that kind of organic metaphor, really, like the little seed, and it's putting its shoots down, and it's doing its thing, and then there's suddenly like, whee, it's going.
Yeah.
I just wonder about some of the timescales on that, and what you're noticing there as it picks up momentum.
I think the thing that we have noticed, and we're beginning to sort of consider this year, is the fact that we're not London based anymore. That sort of happened through the pandemic, but it was even happening before, because people were moving out of London. We're doing things internationally. It just didn't feel like it was London based. And that's something that I want to make sure that we build on and actually grow with, because it can then be everywhere. So we're talking to some of our artists who are in sort of regional spaces and internationally as well, who then sort of become that sort of regional contact for that sort of area, so that groups of our artists can get together independently of feeling like they have to travel or they have to come to London or to wherever it is that things are sort of happening. And then that goes back to the technological sort of support that we now have in place to keep that connectivity going. But I want to make sure that it never gets too big that people don't feel that they're part of the community. So I think the hub sort of idea is something that we need to make sure we are solidly putting in place, because it will continue to grow, and I'm excited about that, but we need to control it going forward a little bit more than it just being this organic ta-da because I want everybody to sort of feel that they can have that conversation with me, or they can have that conversation with someone who is maintaining the ethos and the reach and the gorgeousness that sort of ArtCan encapsulates. So yeah, we are going to continue to grow organically, but gently.
Okay. My curveball question, Kate.
Yeah,
is,
go on.
I think you know, most of us are so in awe of how much you accomplish, balancing a full-time job and family responsibilities and doing so much for ArtCan. I know you have all the trustees helping you now as well, but I was wondering if you have some kind of a guiding principle or a mantra or some kind of little practice that keeps you steady when things start to wobble, or carries you through your overarching plan.
I think it's honesty. I think, and also remembering that everyone gets up in the morning and has to go to the bathroom and get dressed. And it's like, you know, we are all humans in this crazy fucked up world, and everybody wants things to be positive. And I don't know where I've got it from or how it's been instilled in me, but I feel that as long as I approach everything with positivity, then everything else will sort of follow on through. And there should be people who are doing that. And I find it very difficult actually when people come to me from a negative point of view. They're like, well, can we just spin that round a bit and actually look at what the real sort of circumstances are and the honesty and the genuineness of that particular moment. And I think it will always be stemmed in an honest mistake if it's something that needs to be fixed, or it'll be stemmed in just a lack of understanding, in which case education is great and knowledge is useful. Is like, you know, and I feel that everything should be moving forward. And I think us as humans need to always be moving forward, because otherwise you get stuck. And I can't get stuck, because then I won't be able to paint again. And everything that I'm doing, despite the fact it's nuts and crazy, I'm hoping at some point is going to open me up to be able to paint more myself. So it's a personal journey to help all the other artists and to build this all up, and to also for the future for my child and for future generations. It's just, there has to be something that is positive. So I hold on to that really tightly, and I will do everything as genuinely and as honestly as I can to make sure that everybody else that's involved with it and supporting it sort of feels that they are 100% there for the right reasons as well.
Yeah, well, we absolutely feel that positivity coming from you.
Oh, good. Good. It's important, I think, especially when you look at the world and it's just difficult for so many people, and it's really, but if you then bring it, as I say, all the way back down to us being just humans trying to sort of put one foot in front of the other, there's a hell of a lot of positivity in the world that we need to nurture and look after.
Yeah.
And
is that okay?
That's
Yes.
amazing, yeah. And tell us a little bit more then about your own relationship with paint. We've each talked about their practices, and I'd love to hear about yours, Kate.
It's the way that I look at the world, and the quirks of communication, I think, is always underlying in my work. It's books, it's mobile phones, it's newspapers, it's historical sort of, like, I like the old sort of Polaroid and photographs, and it's those captured sort of memories, and it's those moments that are captured that remind you of where you are and where you're standing in the world. And so I tend to often sort of capture something on a canvas that reminds people of that moment in time, that they can just be at one at that moment, because we all need to stop and remember where our feet are standing, to be able to then move on to the next moment in time or whatever it is. So that's the conversation that I like to have with my own work. And I hope I never get a finite answer as to what it is that I'm trying to explore, because the process of me exploring it is something that I find really entertaining. And with today's society and technology moving on and all the different ways of communicating going, I think it will always be a learning process. And that for me is just exciting. And I like seeing how I respond to that through the medium of paint. But it will often just be, I'll sketch an idea, but then as I said before, it's only when I pick up the paintbrush that it actually ends up starting to develop that conversation and actually become what it's supposed to be. But I don't do it enough, and I know I don't do it enough, and I feel it. So I do need to sort of start carving out more time and actually trusting that that's an integral part of what I need to try and achieve. So that's a personal aim for this year, to be able, amongst all the craziness and the busyness, to find those moments in time for myself again.
Yes. Something I found on my journey is that when I tried to paint alongside with still running a dive business, I was never fully committed to it, and it just never flowed very well. And as soon as I sort of separated the two things and decided this is a full-time ongoing commitment, then things change very rapidly. So,
yeah,
I think
you ebb and flow through life, and yeah, I'm quite happy that at the moment this is either an ebb or it is an ebb at the moment, but I knew that was going to be the case, and that was a personal decision to do that. And I think I'm quite looking forward to when it does sort of get unleashed, because I think that's going to be beautiful and exciting and very rewarding in whatever guise that might be. Probably take a while to get going, and then it might be a flow, or it might be a little trickle, you know, and it's like, or drip. Who knows? But at the moment, I do, despite knowing I need to paint, I'm quite content to have made the choice that this is a ebb. So I think you just be gentle on yourselves as well. That if you're not actually physically painting, it's still creative. You are still an artist, and that will never go away.
Yeah, you're storing up ideas and inspiration for later.
Yeah, exactly. There's a hell of a lot inside. We'll wait and see when it comes out. Oh, this has been absolutely brilliant. I think we're almost out of time though. So I wanted to thank you both so much. This has been a really beautiful start to a Saturday morning, early for you, Susan, but thank you for joining so early. Thank you also for sharing your brilliant story about how you're going to be creating your retreat at the end of the year, and I will make sure I tag you so that people can click in and contact you directly to be able to join you, hopefully. And if there's anything else that I can do to support, then please do just ask. I would love to keep sharing the word for you as much as needed. And yeah, that's it for the January Coffee and Chat with Kate. You are both absolutely brilliant. Today it's been Susan Clare and Alex McIntyre, and I wish everybody a really gorgeous, gorgeous weekend. Take care, everybody, and thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.